Hi everyone, Ashley Angeline Kumar here, the Confidence Coach, a Master Certified Parenting Coach, and a Kid Self-Esteem and Self-Confidence Coach. Let's do video number 3 for childhood development with a social emotional lens on it. Let's talk about ages 9 to 11-ish. What are these kids like? Let's find out. Why even bother doing this, by the way, is because it's probably been a long time since we were 9 or 10 or 11 years old. And our brains have matured as humans, as adults, as parents. So our brains aren't operating at the same way our children's brains are operating. So it can be very, very useful to learn and understand our child. When we learn and understand our child, we increase connection. Connection leads to healthy relationships and healthy dynamics in the family. So let's get to it. So the characteristics of this age group are they can be very active, have a lot of energy. So can young kids. Right? But if you're finding that your 9 to 11-year-old is not as active, not having a lot of energy, then we need to actually take a look at what are some of the causes, what is contributing to that, to the low energy or the low mood. It could be anything from nutrition to mental, psychological, to nervous system, to stress, to trauma. Any of these pieces could be affecting energy and activity levels. Could be screen time, could be technologies, could be lack of boundaries, could be lack of structure or routine. There's so many different aspects, and this is where my work as a parent coach is really to help a parent understand and break this apart to understand what's going on for their child. And this is a in-depth process. It's a beautiful process. It's a involved process to figure out what's going on, and let's try to help our child as best as we can without blaming, shaming, criticizing, calling them lazy, using labels, or making assumptions about what's going on for them. Instead, we can get support from a parent coach like me to help us decipher, that's the word, decipher what's happening and take a look at all the aspects. So what's really beautiful about having a coach, I've had lots of coaches myself in my lifetime, is there's a saying by Les Brown, I love it. He says, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. And so true about me too. I'm a parent too. And I often need somebody from the outside to say, hey, let's zoom out on this. Let's take a look at the bigger picture here. Because sometimes we can get real honed in on the behavior or honed in on one particular thing that's showing up for a child. And sometimes we need support. Actually, many times we need support to zoom out. So we want to continue to emphasize active learning experiences for these children at this age group because, again, the brain learns better actively when it's involved, when the child gets to contribute to the experience, when the child gets to have autonomy, even democracy in deciding what the activity is and what it looks like. And, there's a lot that goes into this. Playful parenting continues to be a thing to apply here as well. They like group activities at this age because they're trying to, the teenage years is where you'll see a pull away from parenting and more towards their peer groups. This is their social identity really trying to come through. Cool. So group activities can be super important. Group memberships, club memberships can be very important. Extracurriculars can be very important. And not projecting onto the child of what kind of extracurriculars we want them to do, but really trying to notice the strengths our child has, the interests our child has, and what do they get excited about? What brings them joy when they're doing certain activities? And is there a way to facilitate group bonding in this? And this also means that they will probably experiment hanging out with friends more often unsupervised. Okay. They probably, in this phase, some kids are hitting puberty at this age. And so there's going to be both an interest in the opposite sex, but also possibly let's stick to my own sexual orientation group, like girls might stick more with girls, because the opposite sex can feel intimidating because they're growing, they're developing, things are changing. So there's a interesting dynamic here that's happening and is at play as well. And so we can encourage learning experiences to be done within these safe peer groups and continue to bring in safe experiences for the child with all different kinds of people, diverse experiences. So this is a great place to continue to empower the child in this way. They're going to have interests that change at this age. So they might want to do, they commit to hockey. Yeah, I'm going to do hockey. You might say, we're going to sign up for 6 months. You're going to commit to 6 months, or we're sure we're going to do this. yeah, I want to do it. I'm going to do it. Let's get the equipment. Let's get the stuff. And you invest $600 and they do it for a month and they're like, Mom, I don't want to do hockey anymore. So developmentally, this is normal. I don't know the word normal. This is expected. Is it hard? Yes, it's hard when you invest a lot of money into an extracurricular program. And so their interests might change, but it's actually developmentally normal because they are exploring who they are. They are figuring out what they like, what they don't like, what they want to do, what they're motivated to do, what are their joys, what are their passions, what are their interests. So this developmentally is expected. Is it easy as a parent? Absolutely not. And this is where I get to support parents as a parent coach with that as well. But reprimanding the child for, having a change in heart or change in interest isn't going to actually meet anybody's needs in this situation and can actually create disconnection between child and parent. So we need to be able to navigate these tricky situations in a way where both people feel supported, the parent and the child. Alrighty. You can also, instead of committing to, if we know that this is a tendency, and some kids can commit for the whole year or the whole season or whatever, and some kids, if you notice that your child is interests keep changing a lot and they're waning and they're not figuring out what they like and what they don't, you can choose programs that are shorter in length and more like they involve less commitment. They involve more about testing it out, like an 8-week or a 6-week or 4 sessions, whatever it might be. These options all exist in almost every country, city I know of. And if they don't, you can ask, right, for a different solution. Okay, what's another one? This age group has a lot going on up here in their brain. Changes in the brain that are happening. Changes in identity that are happening. And physical changes that are happening as they start to mature and go into puberty. So it's like lots of stuff is happening at this age group. So this is the age group where a lot of kids also get diagnoses for ADHD or different things. Tends to be a strong age group where this is happening and becoming aware to parents. And these diagnoses, I'm not a big fan of labels and diagnoses, but the diagnosis is the thing that can sometimes grant people access to the resources they actually need. When they don't have a diagnosis, it can actually prevent them from getting the resources, depending on your state, depending on your country, depending on the laws and the healthcare system where you are. So that's something to consider as well. And knowing that they are exploring all these different pieces while they're changing, while they have the peer influences impacting them as well, it might be prudent to offer them work, chores, whether that be chores, schoolwork, whatever it is, even extracurriculars or things that you're doing around the house or activities you're doing as a family, to offer it to them in smaller chunks, smaller pieces, right? So instead of giving an entire list of what needs to be done, for example, let's say it's cleaning day in your house, 10 things, we might go, okay, let's start with this, and then we'll discuss what's next after that. That might be a strategy that will work for you. Other children who might have significant trauma might want to know in advance what is expected of me. I need to know, and is it too much for me? If it's too much, if it's too overwhelming, there's too many things on the to-do list, they're probably going to want to shut down, shut out, go into fight or flight, and resist what's happening in that situation. So smaller chunks can benefit this age group. In my opinion, it can benefit most age groups, including adults. Sometimes we get overwhelmed with our to-do lists as adults, right? So it can be helpful. All right, next. They often need guidance from their caregivers, their teachers, their adult influences, their parents, to attempt their task and know that it's not about the outcome as much as it is about the process, attempting to do their best at whatever they're choosing to do. And I say choosing because autonomy is still big. Are they getting a choice in what's being asked of them as a parent? Are we asking something of them that they also get to participate in deciding about? So let's say it's cleaning the room, right? Are we giving choices around when it's done, how it's done? What are some ways that motivates the child to do it? Like, do they like blasting music and doing it? Do they like listening to an audio story when they're doing it? Do they like listening to jazz music when they're doing it? Or do they like it at a certain time of day? What works better for their system? And these are questions to explore with your child and notice about your child. When do they have like the most ability to do a certain task? Okay, cool. Admire and imitate. They tend to admire and imitate older people. I mean, I know I have a 3 and 5 year olds. I noticed that right from young age, and this makes sense. The pattern is to notice what are the adults around me doing, and if there's someone I'm gravitating towards, I might want to be more like them. I want to have some of those traits that they have. Or maybe in my brain, I have decided, I'm a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old, I've decided that person's really cool, I want to be like them. And so this is still part of them developing a self-identity, and yet it's being influenced by people outside of them. So, and the social emotional learning side of things, it's really important to bring in ideas and concepts around being unique, being yourself, honoring yourself, understanding yourself, and having healthy role models in a child's life, healthy influences. We can't control all the people who are going to influence our child's life, but we can consciously bring in healthy role models, people we align with, people who meet our values and where they're at. When you're looking at the content that they're consuming on the internet, who are they looking at? What are they looking at? What are they listening to? And does it line up with some of your values as a family and what you're hoping for that child to achieve? And this video is all about how do we raise these kids. All my videos are about how we raise these kids with self-esteem and self-confidence so that they can go out into the world and do and be and say who they authentically are, unapologetically fulfilling their dreams and feeling happy and successful on their terms. And having the skills to navigate the stuff that brings them down, because that's inevitable. There's going to be stuff that brings people down. And so what are the skills we're giving them to do that? So this is part of that process. Cool. They're going to want to admire and imitate older youth, especially, I mean, I work with a lot of kids who have step siblings. And it's almost like it's like unconscious. It's unconscious. They're not necessarily saying, I want to be like my sibling, my older sibling, but because that sibling's older, they're automatically a role model, whether they're a good role model or not. I use the quotes because I don't like evaluations, but you know, sometimes it makes sense to explain it quickly. That, you know, is that in our opinion a good role model for a child or not? And that can be difficult when we have, you know, transitions between two homes, in the case of a divorced family with stepchildren and all that, or step siblings, and there's different influences at play. And this doesn't have to be step siblings. It can be peers. It can be kids at school. Whatever it might be, they're going to naturally want to do that. So in this situation, we want to be able to continue to encourage the child to have role models that align with the values and bring in opportunities to socialize with people who exhibit high self-esteem, high self-confidence, resilience, people who might have gone through challenges in their life and have come through them, people who've made mistakes and come through them, so that kids can really relate to them. You know what I mean? If you have questions about it, let me know. This is a big topic. Okay. They are motivated and eager to try new things. This tends to be overall, since from the time they're 2. They want to try new things. The thing is, with this age group, since there's so much happening, they might start to, you'll notice, become less inhibited. Is that the word? Where they think less rationally and want to just try something. And this is where typically an age group where a lot of kids get exposed to drugs, sex, alcohol, that kind of thing. And depending on what foundation has been set for the child before this age will determine some of, will possibly not determine, but will determine how a child responds to the influences that they are faced with, and also will impact the trajectory of the child's life, that foundation that's laid before this age. Cool? So hopefully that's making sense. So it's very normal for them to want to try new things, even if the new thing might not be something you agree with. And this is where we get to do that work, and I get to do it with my families that I work with. Boundaries, values, what does this look like? How do we create democracy? How do we work with the needs around autonomy for the child and meet the needs of the parent? So a lot of stuff there as well. Let's see here. They don't necessarily like a lot of note taking. They don't necessarily like keeping a lot of records about what's going on for them. They might like journaling. I have coached kids at this age group who didn't journal before and then really now really like it. So it depends. But this is where it's going to vary child to child. Some might like it, some might not. And let's say they don't like record keeping, but maybe there's let's say it's something related to, I do a lot of emotion tracking with kids, so they get to track their emotions. I give them a chart. I don't make them do a chart or record great big logs, because there's that, the interest in that is really low. And I'm going to say this general broad term. There might be some kids who love it. Okay, so let's just say that. But developmentally, they're like, I'm not really motivated to keep a chart. But if somebody makes a chart for me, maybe I can just do a check mark, right? So that can facilitate some of the things we want them to start understanding about themselves. So if I want them to start understanding their feelings, I might facilitate the chart for them. They just get to do the check mark or the whatever the process is associated with that. So expecting them to keep records, keep charts, come up with their own self-management techniques at this age may not be within their developmental ability, not because they're trying willfully not to do it, or they're unmotivated, or they're lazy. I don't like these labels, but these are used commonly. This is more about what's happening in their mind-body system at the time. Cool? Again, a lot happening for the child at this time. So if it's not of value to them to do some of these activities that parents might be requesting, or caregivers or adults or teachers, they are going to have a lot less interest. And this is where we as parents get troubled. We're like, oh, why is my child not interested? We resist the fact that they're not interested in a particular record keeping task or chore or whatever it might be. And we resist it. And this is, one, it's normal for the child to resist it if they don't value it. And two is, how do we manage ourselves when we see the resistance? That's the next piece. Okay. This group, you can start to see some of their identity forming around things like ritual, songs, symbols. They might start drawing symbols that they recognize within their age range. When I was a kid, it was the peace symbol and hearts, and we start to see this kind of stuff. Symbols can mean a lot to them. Emojis are common, so they might be doing faces and stuff in their doodling. And this is part of their self-expression. It meets their needs for self-expression. And I think it's beautiful. And when parents, when adults shut that down, why are you drawing all over your page? Or why don't you use a specific way to self-express, like in this notebook only? That gets restrictive for the child, right? So there's some things we need to take a look at. Are we honoring their need for self-expression, looking at words of songs, maybe exploring different songs, sad songs, happy songs, meaningful songs, not meaningful songs, right? They're taking a look at all of that and who they are. And if we are judging them for it, we might be doing them a disservice. Actually, judgment in and of itself, when we judge our children, is a disservice. And so, but when we're judging their choices around what they're exploring with songs and poems or whatever they're doing, it can really diminish their sense of self. And this age group is vulnerable because they're really looking to develop who they are, and that forms the foundation of who they become as a teenager too. So important. They may ask a lot of why questions, and these can be existential. They might not sound like the why questions your child asked when they were 4 or 3 or 5. These can be existential, and it's not necessary that you as a parent have to have all the answers. This can be like, oh, I love that question. Let's look for some of the answers together. Let's explore together. Really being able to encourage togetherness in exploring the answers to their questions can be incredible, and giving them tools so they can explore some of the answers themselves too. Maybe it's we go to the library, get some books, and you can look up some of the answers. And it's also not necessarily feasible that you have to answer them all or facilitate the answers to them all. It's great to have wonder. It's great to have curiosity. And it's great to be able to explore those answers in our own way, in our own time as well. Okay. Let's see here. They may show in this age group some, let's call it, I don't like the words in the document that I have, but which is from the University of Iowa, but let's call it strong need for autonomy continuing to develop. Okay, so they might show a strong need for independence while also showing dependence on the parent for guidance and approval and encouragement. So this can be in a conflicting time, and I wrote a piece on this a year and a half ago, where it's like, this time is very interesting, where it's like both, don't hold my hand but hold me when I need you to be with me close, but also let me have space with my friends. So it's like this balance that parents get to figure out with their child, and I get to help parents do that because it can be challenging. So they want to question a lot of things that a parent might say or ask them to do. Why do I have to do that? Why do I bother? Why is this even a thing? And this can seem like, quote unquote, I don't like this word, but quote unquote backtalk, or this can seem like disobedience. This can seem like rebelliousness, but it's actually them. The reframe of this is, it's actually normal. This is totally developmentally appropriate to like want to question, like, what's this even about? But you can see my attitude, right? Like, why? Like, why even? Right? This is normal because they're trying to understand, but it's coming out in a way that might be triggering to us as parents. So if we can understand that this is pretty developmentally appropriate, we can learn to lean into self-management and continue to notice these characteristics and encourage and allow independence, while also being able to give them the attention, empathy, support they need. So this is tricky for parents, and it's more about managing the triggers that come up in this situation than it is about the child. Okay. Let's see here. They in this age group, statistically, it's been shown through research that kids experience a sharp decline in self-esteem and self-confidence between the ages of 9 and 11. Different statistics will say between 8 and 13 because they look at a broader group. So really, really important to be able to show our appreciation for our children, praise the effort, praise the process, and show recognition, noticing, seeing, hearing them. Really important. And what's really interesting about this is, you know, we as parents, we go through like these really demanding hard times when babies are born, and then the 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. Then there's this like phase where it feels like, oh, they're becoming more independent, and I can like breathe a little more, right? And still, our child really actually continues to need us more and more right through the teen years. And when we start to withdraw from them, thinking, they got this, they can do it. Absolutely, we got to believe in our child and think that. And we still have to know when our child needs the experience of competence that enhances self-concept, that enhances self-esteem, that enhances self-image and self-worth, because this is the age group that typically statistically has shown the sharpest declines in self-esteem and self-confidence. So if we know that statistically this age is vulnerable, then how are we going to show up as parents? We're going to reprimand them in a situation where they make a mistake, or are we going to work through the mistake with them together? But if you never learned yourself as a parent how to handle mistakes when you were a kid, or even how to handle mistakes as an adult, this can be difficult. What do I teach my child? How do I show up? All I know is to reprimand a mistake. This is true in how the school systems work too. And so I have a 5-step system that I teach kids to handle mistakes, and parents don't know this stuff that I get to teach kids. So parents first get to look at this and be like, oh, wow, isn't this cool? 5 steps, and let's go through it. Let's deal with this, and we're going to do it together, and it's a connecting piece for the parent and child. So yeah, these are all important life skills that I get to share with my families, that I get to work with, but really remembering they do need recognition and have a sense of competence and self-esteem. So providing opportunities for this to happen, for this to occur, recognizing them for their accomplishments, but also recognizing the process, cool, that it took to get that, and recognizing feelings is something I said in the first video too. How do you feel when you do this? Continuing to connect to that emotional part of who they are, because emotions are always going to be part of our life, right? All right, we want to be avoiding comparison, and I think this is all the way from all ages and stages. We want to avoid comparing our children to other children, comparing them to their cousins, comparing them to their siblings. It can be incredibly demoralizing for children. I coached a family once where, the daughter was a bit older. She was clean and tidy and neat, cleaned up after herself. The son was a bit younger, and one of the parents was constantly saying, I don't have to, yell at your sister about this, but I have to yell at you because, why? Like, why aren't you able to be more like her? Why can't you? So it was this experience the child was having was like a shutdown and a shutdown of their self-worth. And when I say release, I mean diminishment of the self-worth was starting to happen for the child. There was this constant comparison. So we want to avoid that. And I think that applies at all ages and stages. What can we compare it to is the effort we tried on this particular thing last time, or the effort we can bring to the particular task the next time. So yeah, that's something really important as well. They can show leadership. I mean, you can show leadership from any age, I think from up to age 2 and up. But in this group, leadership, they want to be able to feel powerful and successful. And one of the ways they can do that is through leadership opportunities. So something we get to ask ourselves is, has my child been exposed to adequate leadership opportunities? How many, I've seen so many kids that I coach that when they get to coach me, they love it. When they get to lead an activity, they love it. When they get to work with younger kids than who they are, like if they're 12, they like to work with 9 and 10-year-olds or 8-year-olds, they love it. They like something happens inside of them where they're just like, yeah, I'm going to open up to leadership. It's a sense of felt power, and it's not power in a negative way. It's a power of like, I'm feeling powerful as a leader, but I'm not consciously thinking that as a 10-year-old or 11-year-old. I'm thinking like, I just feel good doing this, right? So are they getting the opportunity to lead activities, even lead family members? So I often offer this to my coaching clients as well, like let the child lead you for a period of time. Let them not be parented for a little period. Hey, we're going to set aside 15 minutes. Just tell me whatever you want to tell me to do and I will do it, right? Let the child lead you. Is there a time for connection where just the child can lead you? There's no correcting, there's no interrupting, there's no suggesting. There's just like, however the child wants to do a particular activity, let them do it. Maybe they change the chess game to a total different game, and we're like, cool, let's just go with it, right? Are they getting chances to have that freedom in leadership? And their decision-making ability here is, because there's so much happening in the mind, in the emotions, in the body physically, this can impede, and there's a lot of impulsiveness and exploration happening as well. This can impede their ability to make, let's say, logical, rational, healthy choices. This is why, in my opinion, setting the foundation in advance of this age for making healthy choices, not necessarily logical or rational, but healthy choices, and really talking about values and boundaries before this age can set them up to be able to make rational, healthy, logical choices at this age. Also remembering that the logical part of the brain is the last part to develop and doesn't fully mature until age 25. So developmentally, are we expecting that our child should be able to make every choice in a healthy way, not screw up, and not make unhealthy choices? Or are we providing space and a lot of room for mistakes to happen? Are we providing a lot of space and a lot of room to mess up? Are we providing even a lot of space for deliberate unhealthy choices? I'm going to say deliberate because they're testing something out. They're exploring something. They might be pushing a boundary. They might be checking something out for themselves. And it seems intentional or conscious on their end, but it may not be deliberate. It may be a conscious choice. I'm going to do that, but the driving force is something unconscious that we don't see. So I help families navigate that too. So that rational piece of decision making is influenced by so many factors, and it's so important to remember this, that developmentally the child may not make those same kinds of choices that a 30-year-old would make. Cool. So hopefully this was helpful. There is obviously a lot involved, as you can see, and you can reach out to me, Ashley, ASHLEY, at ashleyangelinekumar.net. That's my first name, ANJLIENKUMAR.net. I probably put it in the comments or the description of the video. And let me know what you got from it. There's a lot to consider, and no one had ever spelled this out for me when I brought my baby home, so I'm very thankful and grateful that I get to do this for people who are watching this. I'm taking something that the University of Iowa created and putting a social emotional lens on it. And there are some words and language in this document that I'm referring to. If you want to see the document, just let me know. I can get it to you. That I don't agree with. Some of the old ways of thinking about, back talk and disobedience. These aren't things that kids at any age are necessarily trying to do on purpose. There are driving factors and forces that are showing up that we don't see, that are under the behavior. So I want to help empower parents. I want to help empower parents to help bring more self-confident kids and resilient kids and kids with self-esteem into the world. And I hope you got something from this. Let me know. Subscribe, like, comment, share, and we'll see you in the next video. The next video will cover age a little bit older, ages 15 to 18, and understanding them on that social emotional lens of discovery. And we'll see you then. Bye.